Napoleon Hill's life has many secrets that his books do not touch upon. According to Gizmodo's Matt Novak, Napoleon Hill, author of the self-help book Think and Grow Rich, is perhaps the most famous con man of all time. The businessman, born into a poor family in rural Virginia, created a captivating self-help series and helped many people rise from his words of wisdom. Although Hill's book was extremely famous and circulated in the business world, especially among real estate traders, according to Novak's investigation, Hill's life had many secret stories that his books did not touch on. In fact, Hill's public statements up until Novak's investigation were all advertising-oriented, telling people to follow their dreams, persevere, and success would come. Of course, many people followed suit and were actually successful, but the purpose of this article is not to criticize the book, but to highlight the life of a fraudulent book-writing tycoon. The author of the article, Novak, spent 2 years tracing Hill's life and was surprised by what he found. Although he contacted the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Donald M. Green, Novak did not receive any active cooperation. In return, all CEO Green offered was a book promotion and a request to donate $5,000 for a visit to Hill's hometown of Wise, Virginia. Napoleon Hill sells more books now than when he died in 1970. CEO Green told Novak when he met him again in 2014. Because the original investigation was too long, we would like to summarize the main points of the secret palace story that Novak found. First, scams Oliver Napoleon Hill was born in 1883 in Virginia, the son of an unlicensed dentist, James Hill, and a bootlegger, Sarah. At the age of 9, Hill's mother died of illness, and his father remarried his stepmother, Martha. According to books written about Hill's life, he married at the age of 15 after getting a girl pregnant under pressure from her furious father. However, shortly after the wedding, the bride admitted that Hill was not the father. Although the marriage was later annulled, it left Hill with early trauma. At the age of 17, despite his poor family, under Martha's supervision, Hill graduated from high school and went to Virginia to attend college. During this time, he worked part-time and was appointed manager of a 350-person mine owned by businessman Rufus Ayres. His honesty and meticulous calculation down to the numbers are said to be the reasons for Hill's promotion. At this time, Hill was only 19 years old. However, according to what the New York Times recorded in 1995, Hill was involved in a murder cover-up, and for this merit, Ayres rewarded the 19-year-old boy to become mine manager. By the period 1903-1908, books written about Hill's life during this period have been quite omitted. Most say that he graduated from university with a law degree, worked as a part-time reporter, and was the manager of a lumber company. But from the newspapers that Novak collected during this period, the truth about Hill gradually became clear. In 1903, Hill married Edith Whitman and had a daughter in 1905. Hill's family life was full of violence and instability. By June 1907, Hill had moved to Alabama and was involved in the lumber business with a business called the Acri Hill Lumber Company, according to records. In 1908, he was arrested for check fraud, but released after paying restitution. But Hill's biggest scam began in the lumber business. That same year, 1908, Hill bought lumber on credit, without paying, from sources as far away as Georgia, Florida, Indiana, to bring back and dump it in Alabama. Of course, he only accepted cash, not checks. By the second half of 1908, word of Hill's fraud had spread throughout the lumber industry, and creditors were scrambling to find him. But Hill had fled his office in September 1908. This was confirmed in the Pensacola Journal on October 17, 1908. The absence of O.N. Hill as president of the Acri Hill Lumber Company is causing concern to creditors. Mr. Hill has not been in the office since September 8. Meanwhile, an investigation by the Lumberman newspaper published on November 1, 1908, said that Hill told his secretary that he was going to visit some lumber yards, then disappeared. An Alabama court issued a warrant for Hill's arrest, and his lumber company was also seized. However, Novak has not yet found out how the fraudster escaped punishment. All we know now is that in December 1908, Hill fled to Washington, D.C., changing his name and creating a false story about his background, such as automobile expert, educator, sales expert. This was the time when Hill officially used the new name Napoleon Hill, instead of having the last name Oliver as before. Imagination. According to what Hill recorded in his autobiography, 1908 was the pivotal year when he met the legendary billionaire Andrew Carnegie. Thanks to being taught the secrets of getting rich and the principles of success by Carnegie, Hill developed a mindset about getting rich. According to Hill, Carnegie introduced him to other successful businessmen in the U.S. to interview how they got rich, from Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, to Alexander Graham Bell. This project lasted 20 years and Carnegie did not pay him. Instead, Hill could learn from these businessmen. All of Hill's claims were complete lies, according to Novak. The journalist's investigation revealed that Hill spent much of 1908 in hiding from the authorities due to divorce lawsuits, fraud, and property disputes. Journalist Novak said that the most respected biographers of billionaire Carnegie affirmed that the two men had never met, and that the details of their conversations or Carnegie's advice in Hill's book were completely fabricated. Multi-leveling. Fact, Hill had to flee from creditors in 1908. In 1909, he founded the Automobile College of Washington, with advertisements in newspapers that only 6 weeks of training could turn ordinary people into skilled workers in assembling automobiles, which were in dire need of manpower. Trainees were promised to receive about $75 to $200 a week, equivalent to $5,000 at today's exchange rate, after completing the course and going to work. This was confirmed in the Washington Post, published on October 10, 1909. However, according to Novak's investigation, this school was simply a place to recruit free labor for auto factories. Students would have to pay tuition to Hill to assemble cars at the Carter Motor Corporation's Washington branch. Carter had an agreement with Hill to pay these cheap workers, so the fraudster Hill took money from both sides throughout the years 1910 to 1911. Also during this time, Hill married for the third time to a rich young lady. However, Hill's scam was exposed in 1912, when the Carter Car Company went bankrupt due to poor quality, especially when the workers were all amateurs who did not understand what they were doing, while many students accused Hill of cheating them out of money. However, Hill quickly calmed public opinion by changing direction instead of training them to assemble cars. He switched to teaching them to sell cars. Motor World published an article in 1912 about Hill's unusual course, which promised each student would earn $4,800 a year or $400 in commission for each $2,250 car. What is suspicious is that each student will earn an additional $3 for every new person they introduce to this sales network. This model is no different from today's multi-level marketing. Despite his efforts and a $4,000 loan from his wife's wealthy family, Hill's vocational school went bankrupt in 1912. He had to move in with his wife's family in Lumberport. Not long after, through his wife's family connections, he was hired as a law professor at LaSalle Extension University in Chicago, even though Hill himself had never graduated or worked in any law-related field.